The Senate Committee on Government Affairs will come to order. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Daley?
Here.
Senator Ellison? Senator Krasner?
Here.
Senator Neal? Senator Orenshaw?
Here.
Senator Rogich?
Here.
Chair Flores?
Present. Please let the record reflect that we do have a quorum, and please mark Senator Neal as absent excused. Everyone, welcome to the very hard-working Committee on Government Affairs. It's a pleasure to see you all joining us today. As you know, we will be having Congressman Horsford will be addressing both the Assembly and Senate today. That's scheduled at 5. I make that to make it a point that hopefully we can try to conclude the meetings before that. Otherwise, we're going to see ourselves obligated to stop the hearing, go to the presentation, and then come back afterwards, which I'm sure everybody's very excited about being here till 10 at night. So in the interest of trying not to do that, I want to remind folks, particularly those of you who wish to testify in support, opposition, or neutral, if somebody's already indicated that they are in support and made your argument, or they are in opposition and have made your argument, it's always okay for you to put your name on the record and simply say that you agree with the previous statement in the interest of time. I also want to remind folk that we're working on our computers. Please don't take that as a sign of disrespect. If we're looking down a lot of our exhibits and the slides are on our computers. Do want to remind folks to please silence your cell phones. I'm doing that myself now. For those of you wishing to participate today, testify, please make sure you provide your contact information to Mr. Jones so that we can have your information should we need to contact you at a later time for minute purposes. I also want to remind folks, if you haven't had an opportunity to do so, that you please do sign in at the front door. We have 3 items on the agenda today. We have Senate Bill 3299, and then lastly, we'll close out with public comment. As always, we're going to limit testimony in support, opposition, and neutral to 2 minutes. That is customary in this committee, and we've been doing it since day one. Please don't take it as a sign of disrespect if I cut you off. I will first kind of throw up number 2 at you. That means the 2-minute mark has hit, and you can maybe do your last closing remark with that. With that said, we're going to go ahead and start with Senate Bill 32. Good afternoon, welcome, and we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 32. And please state your name for the record after each question. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Celestina Glover, and I serve as the Executive Officer for the Public Employees Benefits Program. And with me today is Leslie Bilston. She serves as the Quality Control Officer for the Public Employees Benefits Program. Today I have before you Senate Bill 32. The bill is essentially affecting my QC officer. It eliminates the section in the bill or the paragraph in the statute where the QC officer reports to the director of the Department of Administration. That has been in effect since 2017, I believe. But over the years, the duties of the quality control officer has changed to the point that we don't believe that it is necessary for that position to continue to report to the director. In the past, that position was a internal audit type position. That was their primary function. But over the years, the position has become more of a ombudsman. They do education, write our plan documents, address appeals and complaints, and they also help our members navigate the benefits and then work with vendors to address any issues, whether the issue is between the plan and the member or between the vendor and the plan. So with that, I will take any questions.
And thank you for the presentation and joining us today. Members, we'll start off with Senator Daley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to be as quick as I can. And I believe you're correct, it was in 2017 when it changed to the Director of the Department of Administration in Senate Bill 502. I'm wondering what prompted that change back then. And then in conjunction with that was this bill brought forward, was the PEB board asked about whether they supported this particular measure, or, go ahead.
This is Celestina Glover for the record. So we were asked to keep our BDR request confidential during the process. So prior to those BDRs coming out, we didn't have an opportunity to ask the board. They have since been made aware of that. And as of yet, I've received no opposition. I've had discussions with the board chair, who is the director of the Department of Administration, and even this morning I spoke to her again, and she has no concerns with this change. And part of that is because the duties of the individual in that position has changed significantly. We put a lot of other protections in place because some of the concerns were we doing our jobs appropriately, and could this person effectively report any issues without any retribution. And we have so many things in place through independent auditors, biennial compliance reports. We have requirements by statute to bring those reports in front of the interim retirements and benefits committee. So a lot of things have been put in place that the function has just totally changed.
Please do.
Thank you. And part of what you said is part of where I'm trying to get to and understand. You say the position has changed. Quality control officer, dating back to, I believe, the first bill that put it in, that said the executive director yourself could appoint several other positions. And the quality control person was not included in that. That was always approved for hiring or dismissal by the board. And that goes back to 1999, so quarter of a century there on that, where you always had the quality control person independent, as you said, so that they would feel free to only report directly to the board. And you're saying all of that has changed, or do we still need to, in my mind, we still need to keep that person independent, which is why we've had it that way since '99. Regardless of who appoints, I think the board needs to still maintain that control. But
This is Celestina Glover for the record. If the position was still doing the internal audit function, then yes, I would believe that that person should be separate and have some level of separation from the executive officer. But because that function doesn't exist anymore with the position, the protections aren't in the same, the requirements for the protections of the person in that position isn't the same as it would have been. They are afforded a lot of other protections just through our HR system that any one of our employees would be afforded, including, whistleblower and other statutes like that. So I think the primary driver is simply because we have changed the duties in that position, the requirements we need to help our members, to get our members educated and assist them through the process of, getting through their benefits and help with their claims and things of that nature is more critical to us than the internal audit, simply because, as I said, we have vendors that perform those functions, and they are independent. They come in every year and do these various audits, including audits of our vendors. So we have some audits are quarterly, some are annually, and then our biennial compliance is every other year in the even-numbered years. So there's a lot of other things in place that position no longer has to be responsible for.
final just
Follow,
comment.
please.
Final comment is more of a comment than anything, and I understand and not down yet. I'd still like to hear, if you could, before I'm fully satisfied, from somebody from the board, to confirm or give their input on that explanation. So before I'm satisfied on that, I'd like to hear from somebody from the board, if you can tell them that.
This is Celestina Glover for the record. I can contact my board chair and have her contact staff to talk to the committee if that's what you would like to see. I as I said, I did have discussions with her, and she did not have any issues with these changes. But if you would like to hear directly from her, I can definitely try to make that arrangement.
Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. One question I have, are audits at the direction of the board, or are they under the purview of the quality control officer?
So the audits are, this is Celestina Glover for the record. The audits are not directly at the direction of the board, depending on which audit we're talking about. So the financial statements, that audit happens annually. That's a state requirement. It's also in our statute because it does need to be, the audited financial statements does have to be reported to IRBC, and it's also provided to our board, and it's put on our website. Same thing with our OPEB. So we have an OPEB valuation that tells us where we are, what our net liability is. That also goes on our website. That's also presented to the board. It's also presented to IRBC. So some of these things are in statute, some of these are in policy. To protect the agency, to protect our members, we want audits of our vendors, so our third-party administrator has a quarterly audit, so we can make sure they're paying the claims according to our plan benefits and according to the agreements between the network and the providers. We have an annual audit that we have also an independent auditor do for our pharmacy benefits manager. That's to ensure they're paying their claims correctly, but also that we are receiving the guaranteed discounts that they have promised in our contract, and that we are getting all the rebates we're supposed to get. And then we have a market check on that group as well, again, to make sure we're getting the best discounts and the rebates that we should be getting in the pharmacy space, so that we're getting that money back into the plan.
Thank you very much. A brief follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Please follow up.
If this bill passes as is, do you think there'd be less frequency of audits or any less amount of audits if this deletion of the quality control officer passes into law?
This is Celestina Glover for the record. No, we would continue with the same number of audits with, whichever vendor has been selected through the RFP process. And we are also subject to any state audits that might come along, so there's always something that could come, so it could actually expand those audits, but the audits we currently request, we do not envision those changing. We want that protection. It protects all of us, and we want to make sure that continues on, because we also get, we assess penalties if they don't meet their metrics, so that's money coming back to us if they don't perform properly.
Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. I'll ask that you please sit back. And at this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 32, either in Las Vegas or Carson City. If you could please step forward. Seeing no one in Carson City or Las Vegas, BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone in support of Senate Bill 32?
Thank you, Chair. Your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite anybody in Las Vegas or Carson City to please step forward if you wish to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 32. I see somebody in Las Vegas, and I see a few folk in Carson City. We'll start in Las Vegas, and then we'll move to Carson City. We do have 3 seats if you'd like to occupy them. In Las Vegas, please, whenever you're ready.
Doug Unger, D-O-U-G-U-N-G-E-R, Nevada Faculty Alliance, and member of the UNLV Employee Benefits Advisory Committee. Thank you, Chairs Flores and Orenshaw and members of the committee. The Nevada Faculty Alliance opposes SB 32, which would change the structure of the Quality Control Officer inside PEB. Please note the proposed amendment submitted by Kent Irvin on behalf of the NFA that would replace the Quality Control Officer with an independent financial officer who would carry out the oversight and auditing responsibilities originally intended by the legislature in 1999 in SB 544 in response to the independent administrator debacle that left thousands of state employees with delayed or unpaid claims, including me, more than $9,000 worth. Duties changed in 2017, and as an advocate for faculty benefits, I saw at least 3 denied claims and 2 HRA-HSA account issues very speedily and effectively resolved by PEB's quality control officer. As a faculty and state employee advocate, one who has been attending most PEB board meetings and responding to PEB proposals for 14 years, I believe both kinds of quality control are necessary. An independent financial oversight officer whose job is to report to the PEB board and watch out for the solvency of PEB and the quality of its plans to avoid catastrophe. And as well, a true quality control or member ombudsperson who can resolve complex issues, often, in my experience, caused by difficult to find errors in provider coding and/or wrong descriptions of diagnoses misinterpreted by the UMR or, before that, the Health Scope Benefits Administrator. For these reasons, without amendment, we oppose passage of SB 32. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I don't believe we have anybody else wishing to speak in opposition in Las Vegas. We'll move to Carson City, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Marlene Lockhart, and I'm here today representing myself in my personal capacity. I am opposed to SB 32 as it is written. As you can see by this gray hair, I have been around a long time, and I happen to be one of the 3 individuals that crafted SB 502 in 2017. And we crafted that bill with the Director of Administration at that time. Given the history of PEB and the problems and the millions and millions of dollars that it cost the state of Nevada when there was no oversight within that agency, we felt it prudent to take a look at how the quality control officer was structured and the reporting requirement. Prior to that time, or in one of the iterations, the quality control officer reported to the board. And SB 502 changed that to report to the director of the Department of Administration, who is the chair of the PEB board. So there's the linkage there between the chair and the quality control person reporting to that person. We felt that independence of the quality control officer was paramount, and reporting to the director or even to the amendment speaks to the chief financial officer doesn't give that person the fresh independence it needs, he or she needs, to actively and critically review the process and procedures within the department. Okay, I'll hurry it up. Based on experience, we feel that that person does need to report to an independent outside person. And I've been giving this some thought. I just heard about this bill at 10 o'clock last night. And I think even if the quality control person was taken totally out of the agency and put in the Department of Administration, or even the governor's audit committee, that it would serve the purpose that we needed the position to serve. And I was dismayed to learn that those duties and responsibilities of the quality control had changed.
I appreciate that. We are at the 2-minute mark, but I will encourage you to please reach out to our bill sponsors so that you just have an opportunity to continue to engage, particularly in some of those suggestions. And then anything you want to send over to the committee, we'll respectfully always review that as well. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Tess Opferman here on behalf of the AFSCME retirees. We are regrettably similarly in opposition to those who spoke before me. I can keep these comments brief, but in concept, we understand that the position currently may not be working as the PEB board sees best, but we do feel strongly that we need some sort of external oversight. When the quality control position was put into place in 1999, there was a clear reason for that, and we do need some sort of oversight over the PEB administration, whether that's reporting to the PEB board or whether it's an external position entirely, as stated by Marlene Lockard. So we are opposed to the bill. We do want to continue having conversations. I know there is a suggested amendment. We are open to conversations about that amendment or discussing potential other solutions to this. We're in opposition to the bill itself, but we'll continue working to find a better solution. Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us. Please.
Hello, Chair Flores, members of the committee. For the record, Randy Saltero representing AFSCME. We are opposed to this bill as it's currently written. We are more than happy to work with the bill sponsor and to see if there is any solutions that we can come to, but at this time we are opposed.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to join us in opposition of Senate Bill 32 here in Carson City? Seeing none, BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone? Opposition to Senate Bill 32.
You have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you. BPS will stay on the phone. Anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position to Senate Bill 32?
You currently have no callers at this time.
Thank you. Anybody in Las Vegas or Carson City wishing to testify in the neutral position to Senate Bill 32? Seeing none, if you'd like to come back and just any closing remarks you may have.
Celestina Glover for the record. So I understand the concerns that have been talked about here, but as I said, the protections are in place to ensure that PEB is, one, following whatever state and federal law is in place, and to ensure that our vendors are doing what they need to do. Back in 1999, when the TPA at that time wasn't paying the claims bills, there was no oversight. We do not have the same situation now. So I believe now is a good time to really look at the function of the position. Moving it out of the agency totally would leave us in a place where a lot of the work that is done by that position and has always been done by the person in that position, we would not have that done anymore. And that's our plan documents, that's the education and assistance of our members directly. And that still happens, has always happened, and would not change with the change as we requested in this bill.
Thank you again for joining us. I do think the committee would be in a much kind of better place in terms of clarity of where the board stands once we get that email communication. And I'll be sure that to share with the entire membership, should Senator Daly or myself or our vice chair get that. I think that will be helpful. And then if you don't mind, as a request, there was obviously a lot of folk that you may not have known were in opposition and may have caught you a little flat-footed. Just in the interest of working together, maybe we could have a sit-down, and I will make sure that through my office, we try to facilitate a meeting and see if we could figure out a middle ground. It sounds like we're all trying to say the same thing, we're just saying it differently, and I think we'll find that.
That will work for me. Thank you.
Appreciate you again for being here. Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 32. And next, I'd like to open up the hearing on Senate Bill 99 by our amazing Senator Daly, who promised us he would wear a very special tie for us today. Thank you, Senator. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Skip Daly, representing Senate District 13 for the record. We're here to introduce Senate Bill 99, which came from the interim committee for the oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and Marlette Lake Water System. It was a long title. And I'm just going to introduce our other people here and hand off to them, because I know the committee's going to be surprised to hear that they know far more about this particular subject than I do. I know it's a surprising thing, but, so we have Washoe County Commission Chair Alexis Hill and Devin Middlebrook with TRPA. And then they requested this, TRPA requested it during the interim, was supported by Washoe County, and they're going to be able to answer all of your questions, so I'm told.
Thank you, Senator Daley. And good afternoon, Chair Flores and Vice Chair Orenshall and committee members and staff. For the record, I am Washoe County Commissioner Alexis Hill. And today I am presenting to you in my capacity as a member of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency Governing Board. Joining me this morning are John Hester, TRPA's Chief Operating Officer, and Devin Middlebrook, TRPA's Government Affairs Manager. Thank you for inviting us to present today about one of Tahoe's most pressing challenges, the affordable housing crisis. The topic of today's hearing is Senate Bill 99, which could be another tool in the housing toolbox for my county to address this crisis. I also want to thank Senator Daley for his participation as chair of the Interim Oversight Committee for TRPA and the Marlet Lake Water System in 2024. Today, our discussion of SB 99 comes from a recommendation by this interim committee and their meetings in 2024. And finally, I'd like to recognize Senator Krasner, who represents this part of my district in the legislature. Simply put, I love Lake Tahoe, and I know all of you as well do. I grew up in the city of Sparks, and I have fond memories as a kid of spending summer days at Sand Harbor and skiing at Mount Rose. Now it's my honor to represent Washoe County's 1st District, which includes beautiful Lake Tahoe and the communities of Incline Village and Crystal Bay. Solving the housing crisis in Tahoe is one of my top priorities as a commissioner. The housing crisis is best summarized by this slide. Half of Tahoe's existing homes are second homes used seasonally or just a few times a year, and homes are expensive. The median cost in 2024 for the Tahoe region was $980,000. In my district, these numbers are even more extreme. In 2021, the median home price was $2.2 million, and monthly rental rates were $5,000. Tahoe's housing supply is unaffordable by design. More than 75% of the homes built in Washoe County portions of Tahoe since 2010 are valued over $1 million by the Washoe County assessor. About 70% of these homes are high-value residents covering about 5,000 square feet. To address this crisis in 2021, Washoe County completed a housing needs assessment. I will note that this study was conducted at the beginning of the COVID-19 Zoom boom effect that saw many remote workers move to the region, further increasing demand in housing prices. This impact of rising home prices and the impact of our community from the lack of affordable housing might best be explained by a local resident who was featured in a video about the 2021 needs assessment. Suzanne is a teacher at the Lake Tahoe School in Incline Village. She explains here that teachers can no longer afford to live in Lake Tahoe. This causes staffing shortages and ultimately impacts our children's education and future. It impacts the ability for the sheriff's office, public works, and fire departments to hire staff, and staff we need nearby in case of a fire or other emergencies which happen without notice. For example, we heard of a situation where a local water treatment facility needed to be shut down on a Saturday. The person who knew how to do that process had to drive from their home over an hour away in Reno. This is just one of many examples of the impact to our public health safety that the housing crisis is currently having. I will now turn this presentation over to Devin Middlebrook with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency to explain more about Senate Bill 99, which is before the committee today.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Thank you, committee. Again, Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record. That's MIDDLEBROOK. Commissioner Hill shared the personal and practical impacts of high housing costs in her district. I would like to highlight that issue and the impact it has as a region as a whole in Tahoe with some more data. According to the Tahoe Prosperity Center, in 2019, only 28% of Tahoe residents could afford the median home price. Additionally, 50% of our workforce now commutes from outside of the region into Tahoe for work, primarily from the northern Nevada region, as you can see here, with green being the origin and red being the destination on this map. This daily commute pattern adds to congestion on our roadways and impacts air and water quality and degrades the overall quality of life for our communities. As a region, housing is needed for all income levels. 3 needs assessments completed in recent years across the region have identified a regional need for more than 5,800 units to meet current and future housing demand. This includes affordable, moderate, and achievable income levels. I've noted those income definitions of each level on this slide. Affordable and moderate match federal and state definitions, and the achievable category was created by TRPA to ensure our housing programs meet the needs of all residents, including those in what is known as the missing middle. These are people that live and work in Tahoe but don't qualify for housing based on income. To qualify for achievable housing, a household must either have an income level at that moderate level or work for 30 hours in the Tahoe Basin for a Tahoe-based business, or have previously lived in deed-restricted housing for at least 7 years in the Tahoe Basin. Specifically for Washoe County, that need was identified at 1,205 units by 2026. 2 factors have contributed to Tahoe's high housing prices, including past development patterns and limited land availability. At Tahoe, 90% of the land area is public and protected from development. The remaining 10% of land is privately owned. Most private development was built in the region before 1987 when TRP adopted its first regional plan and implemented development caps. Today, only 2% of the Tahoe Basin is privately owned and undeveloped. Our 2012 regional plan promotes environmentally beneficial redevelopment with incentives to remove past development that is often in environmentally sensitive areas and move it to town centers, creating vibrant community spaces. TRPA recognizes that we play a role in solving the housing crisis, and this is one of our strategic priorities and focus of our Tahoe Living program. The phases of this program are displayed on the side, and to save time, I won't go into each one of these, but just know that each one of these phases looks at ways we can reduce barriers based on our regulations to developing affordable housing in the community. And last year we kicked off phase 3 of this work, and we are continuing to engage with community members on a wide variety of solutions. TRPA's work on housing aims to reduce costs associated with developing housing. This chart from Washoe County, their needs assessment in 2021, shows the estimated cost of developing housing in Tahoe. Even when you assume 0 land costs, which a vacant parcel can range from $25,000 to $250,000, building a 1,000 square foot unit could cost $540,000. You can also see that fees are only part of the overall cost of developing housing, but fees are at the center of today's conversation. When building a house, you must pay a variety of fees, including utility and mitigation fees. This includes fees for water, sewer, and power hookups, school and fire districts, and mitigation fees to offset impacts to air and water quality and traffic. That brings us to today's hearing, Senate Bill 99. This bill was submitted through TRPA and our Interim Oversight Committee, as was mentioned. The goal of the bill is to provide local jurisdictions like Washoe County a tool to help offset the costs associated with those utility and mitigation fees for affordable housing projects. They're called linkage fees because they draw a connection or linkage between market rate development and affordable housing development. I would like to highlight the high-level points of the draft bill. The bill would provide authorization only to local jurisdictions in the Tahoe Basin only to charge certain market rate housing developments a linkage fee to offset those same costs for deed-restricted affordable housing. The proposal is enabling only and limited to the Tahoe Basin. The fee would apply to housing over 1,000 square feet, which is about half the average size of existing single-family homes in the Tahoe Basin. It's important to note that TRPA does not have taxing authority, and this would not be giving us that authority. It is for local governments and local jurisdictions in the Tahoe Basin to, again, have that authority to enact or not enact a linkage fee. Before any fee can be implemented, a nexus study must be completed that determines the proportional nature and extent of the impacts between new market rate development and affordable housing development. At Tahoe, with our limited land base for development and strict growth caps, there is a direct link between these two types of development. And finally, the potential linkage fee not only funds affordable housing, but offers exemptions for them when they are built. Finally, I want to provide a look at potential implications to the Nevada portion of the Tahoe Basin by looking at some parcel data. As mentioned, there is previously mentioned, there is limited remaining private land that is undeveloped. That's about 277 parcels in Washoe County and 184 in Douglas County. Additionally, any new development is limited by our development right allocations, which are distributed by TRPA every 2 years. Currently, Washoe County has 123 residential allocations available, and Douglas County has 75. And again, just noting the average home size of existing homes on the Nevada side of the Tahoe Basin. This slide shows several examples of cities, other cities with linkage fees. The exact policies and fees vary by community, but generally represent the range of options that could be considered by Tahoe's local jurisdictions through SB 99. I would also note that several jurisdictions also charge linkage fees on additions or renovations, not just new construction. I will now turn it back to Commissioner Hill to wrap up this presentation.
Alexis Hill for the record. In closing, I would like to thank you all for your time and consideration of Senate Bill 99. No individual tool will solve this housing crisis, but my county needs every tool it can get. And I'm fear if we do not act now, the communities at Lake Tahoe will continue to erode and further degrade. And we want to ensure that we make Tahoe ensure that Tahoe stays such a special place. And we want to work with stakeholders. This bill came quickly, but we anticipate with that work, we will bring forward friendly amendments to ensure that the bill works for our county and for our communities and business communities. For example, with limited opportunity for new construction, we may want to consider allowing the linkage fee to apply to additions and renovations. We will work with this committee and committee staff with any amendments once they are ready. I will now turn it back to you, Chair Flores, to hear from the committee.
Thank you for the presentation. And we always appreciate when you take the lead and you have Senator Daley set aside. All right. Senator Daley's always lecturing us, and we don't like it. No, I'm kidding. I appreciate the work you've been doing, and we're going to open it up for questions. We'll start off with Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate what you're saying, that, the housing in Tahoe is expensive, but I don't know, a lot of people think that it's really special now, the way it is. And I am guessing that, the people that own development companies, the builders and construction people, the developers, they probably feel like this fee that'll be placed on them is unfair. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think Alexis Hill for the record, and I think that, I hear what you're saying, Senator. I don't think we're trying to do anything unfair. I think we're trying to find solutions for these complex issues. You'll probably see some other bills come forward from the TRPA interim committee that will look at transportation, because that is a major issue that we are seeing in Tahoe, and ways to fund that, and creation of business improvement districts that would also fund these type of necessary resources. But I think we all have to come together and find a way to support these issues. With depreciating property tax, it's a tough situation for the county to try to tackle workforce housing. So there's a potential for us to develop the old elementary school site in Incline Village, for example, and that is owned by the TTD, the Tahoe Transportation District, and there may be an opportunity to do a joint venture of a mobility hub and affordable housing. But anything that exceeds 60% AMI doesn't have that federal government subsidy to it, so the local governments have to find ways to pitch in, and in Tahoe it's even more expensive. So this is an all hands on deck issue, but I don't know if my coworkers have anything to add.
Thank you, Senator. John Hester, Hester, Chief Operating Officer at TRPA. Surprisingly, we've actually had builders ask us to set fees that are smaller for smaller units and development rights that are smaller for smaller units, because what happens is if they have to come in and build a big house with the same fee, they have a financial incentive to build a big house, and people who'd like to, or big unit, people who'd like to build smaller units that are more affordable say, your fee structures and your development rights actually incentivize us not to build the kind of housing we need for the workforce and to be affordable.
So you're saying the developers are in favor of this bill?
We have, as Devin mentioned, John Hester again, as Devin mentioned, we have a Tahoe Living Working Group, and we have some housing developers on that committee, and some of them have said to us that, yes, we would like these kinds of changes for us to be able to build smaller units.
Senator Ellison, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just got a couple quick questions. I know the housing up there is awful. I mean, it's so expensive, you just can't build anything. But I do have a couple questions. Number one, and I heard you talking about it, but my little machine quit right at that time. It says here on the land, there'd be zero cost whatsoever on the development. And it said example cost right here in development. And it says cost by percentage, land acquisition zero. Now, is that going to be picked up by the state, or that'll go into development of the house? That was my first question. The second question is, how many acres are we talking?
Yep, through you, Chair. Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record. For the first question, that example on that slide of the example housing costs, that analysis that was done excluded the land cost just for the purpose of that exercise and the analysis. Land costs typically, a vacant parcel can range from $25,000 to $250,000 in the Tahoe Basin. Where we have seen success in developing affordable housing projects is when government agencies who own land in the basin, such as the state or local jurisdictions, provide that land at no cost. So that is part of the magic sauce of making this work, is having public land that is available. But in generally speaking, that zero land cost was just an assumption for that exercise. And typically, again, it's $25,000 to $250,000. And then on your second question, in total acreage, I don't have in my notes the total acreage of those remaining private parcels, the limited ones on the Nevada side, but can work with our team and get that data and follow up with you.
And
Follow, please.
I think that's important to know how big of acreage there is, because that's going to determine how many houses you really can actually have. And if you can get a lot up there for $25,000 with utilities, sign me up. Thank you.
Senator John Hester with TRPA. We don't have acreage, but we know that there's approximately 3,000 unbuilt lots. They vary in size. The other part, to give you a complete answer to your question, is we have changed our system so that you can transfer, like from commercial use to residential use, or from a hotel room to a residential use, as a way to try to make more land and more parcels available for housing. So it's hard to pin down a number or acreage, but it's at a minimum 3,000 that are left that are available.
Please follow up.
That makes sense if you're going to tear down old apartment houses but then people there, that if they do, they're going to have a place to go to also. So it's kind of like a cat and a mouse type thing, but it's anything's doable. Yeah, but I'd like to see that numbers if possible. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Senator Daley is not asking questions on his own bill. Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to invite you to sit back. And at this time, I'd like to invite anybody in Carson City or Las Vegas wishing to join us in support of Senate Bill 99. If you could please come forward. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Flores and Senate Government Affairs Committee. For the record, I'm Mindy Elliott, M-E-N-D-Y-E-L-L-I-O-T-T, today representing the Nevada Housing Coalition and the Reno Housing Authority. I think as we bifurcate this bill, right? This bill, I want to thank the TRPA and Senator Daley and certainly Chair Hill for bringing the bill forward. We're looking at multiple bills this session as it relates to housing. We all know we have a shortage of housing, whether it's in the Tahoe Basin, Nevada, Reno, Las Vegas, it doesn't matter, we have a housing shortage. The tools that we need to really start building these houses is multiple, whether it's linkage fees or it's more LIHTC, housing tax credits, the state tax credits. In the lasagna, as we like to call the capital stack, it really takes a multitude of opportunities to get something from zero to an actual house. When you start looking at 60% AMI and people trying to live in the Tahoe Basin and looking at, how can we help these people that want to work in the basin and stay in the basin and grow and have their children in the basin, there really needs to be an opportunity or multitude of solutions that the county can look to build these types of projects. We know the numbers that they have for the infill, and these are the types of projects that we certainly want to see from the Housing Coalition as well as the Reno Housing Authority, who actually manages some of the projects up there, the developments up there for these individuals. We're anxious to work with anyone. If they have challenges with the bill, we want to be part of the solution. We appreciate this bill being brought forward. And as I said, we're looking at least 45 bills right now with the various solutions to help. And hopefully, this is just one tool in the toolbox, as Commissioner Hill alluded to, that they need in order to facilitate this type of residential housing. Thank you so much.
That was exactly 2 minutes. That's really impressive. Anybody else wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 99? Seeing none, BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Understood. At this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 99. If you could please come forward. I see nobody in Las Vegas. And so we'll stick with Carson City. Good afternoon. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Good afternoon. John Eppolito, a real estate broker in Tahoe, both states, California and Nevada, for 27 years. We've been dealing with and watching the TRPA for all these years, I have anyway. In my opinion, the TRPA started out with very good intentions to keep Lake Tahoe clear. But once they started getting into the city planning business, things went downhill fast. Last time I mentioned the affordable housing special area we had in Incline Village that Commissioner Hill totally destroyed. We don't have that anymore. I'd also like to mention, be real careful on this bill, because that achievable housing, they claim it's for the missing middle. That's not true at all. Achievable housing is for anybody that claims they live in Tahoe for 30 hours a week. You could be a hedge fund manager making $6 million a year, and you qualify for their achievable housing. It's a smokescreen. What they're doing is wrong. And the reason I say that is because, and that might be why the developers are for this too, by the way. The San Francisco Gate just published an article last month talking about the ski traffic we already have. And the title of the article is "Ski Traffic is Public Safety Hazard. The emergency vehicles can't get through on these peak days." TRPA just signed off on Placer County Commission, or Placer County Commissioner on that side. She stated she now has a partner in Altera. And what I'm talking about is Squaw, Palisades. They just approved 1,000 units. That's going to add over 3,000 vehicles a day to the area, and 1,300 to the basin, and this is on peak days. We cannot get out in a fire hazard. TRPA has not addressed this. Washoe County has not addressed this, and we are very, very concerned about this. Don't give them anything, please. Make them get us out, or make them come up with a plan to get us out in the event of a fire. And we can have a fire in the winter. We've seen fires. We saw it in Hawaii. We just saw one, Southern California. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the time.
And thank you for joining us, sir. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. For the record, Dan Morgan on behalf of the Nevada Home Builders Association. The Nevada Home Builders Association is a statewide advocacy organization combining the Southern Nevada Home Builders Association and the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. We appear today in front of you in opposition of the bill in the way in which it is currently written. We ask for the opportunity to work with the bill's author and the committee to deal with some of the issues that we had submitted earlier today in a letter to the committee. And we would just like the opportunity to work with the bill's author and the committee to work through some of those issues. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 99? Seeing none in Carson City or Las Vegas BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone in opposition?
Chair, your public line is open and working. You have no callers at this time.
Thank you. And we'll stay on the phone line. Is there anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 99?
There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 99, either in Carson City or Las Vegas? Seeing none, any closing remarks you may have?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Alexis Hill for the record. I would just like to highlight the concern about the evacuation issue that was brought up by the constituent. We at TRPA also share this concern and are working with our fire officials and sheriff's offices to continue to support evacuation plans. In Washoe County in particular, on our February 25th agenda, we will be looking at initiating an evacuation study for the whole region as well. So we are cognizant of those issues. I just did want to highlight that. And Mr.
Then Devin Middlebrook again for the record with TRPA. Just on the achievable housing definition, just wanted to clarify that for the local employer rule, that the employer that the employee works for at least 30 hours a week must have a business license or tax address within the Tahoe region or Tahoe Truckee Unified School District Board. It can't be a corporation that's incorporated in Delaware or New York or internationally, for example. And then for the Nevada Home Builders Association, would love to work with them and understand their potential concerns with the bill and how we can make everything stronger and work with this committee. And thank you again for your time.
And thank you again for the presentation. With that, we'll go ahead and close out the hearing on Senate Bill 99, and we look forward to the continued conversation on your bill. We'll close out the hearing on Senate Bill 99, and we'll invite those wishing to testify for public comment to please come forward to Carson City or Las Vegas. I see nobody in Las Vegas and nobody in Carson City. BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone for public comment?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you. And with that, members, I appreciate us meeting the deadline. We're not going to make our poor staff come back after the remarks of our congressman. We will not be meeting this Friday. For those of you with families, make sure you plan accordingly. We will not be meeting this Friday. We will be back in this committee room Monday at 3:30. And with that, this meeting's adjourned.